Hello, and welcome to episode 29 of My Dog Will Eat My Face. This episode is going to be a little bit different from other ones, mainly because from last week's update to this week, I frankly don't have much news to report in my well-being or any calamities that I'm facing. Nothing new has changed there. That is to say, it's still dire. I'm still dealing with the additional immunity issues that I brought up last week. And that's still a difficult addition to my fight to try to stay alive. Wow, I know, in fact, I'm dying. So, that being said, things are at a kind of status quo, is what I would call it, for at least this week. So I had several options before me. One, I could choose to not podcast because there's nothing new. Two, I could give a podcast and say what I just said and end the podcast. Saying nothing was new and call it a day. I did my part. Or three, I could provide the former and also provide some other thought that I can derive from some of my previous writings when I was actually in rehab some years back. And the reason why I would bother to do this is because even though those writings were for a far different purpose and with an outcome that's debatable, I do think there's some value in the writings I produced. You see, I went to drug and alcohol rehab actually several years back because according to my ex, I had a serious drinking problem and needed to go to rehab. At the time, yes, I was drinking heavily. There's no denying that. I was working a very high-stress job. I was dealing with relationship stuff. Pretty much everything, and then the medical stuff was kind of looming in the background, and it led me to crack at the seams, so to speak, and indulge far too heavily into various poisonous liqueurs, shall we say. And I admit that full width, obviously. And what I got out of that time, though, in rehab, really had nothing to do with alcohol or addiction, for that matter. I came out of it thinking addiction is something we've made up as a society, and I don't think it's real. So that's a podcast for another day. But I came out of it with a lot of writings and a lot of thought about my life, about where I was going with my life, and some pretty good reflection is what I would call it, that I managed to apply with pen to paper when I was given the opportunity to do so in my 2 months there. You see, frequently they had these moments where they would say, okay, everybody, it's time for meditation. And between my listeners, me, and the lamppost, I can't meditate at all. I am awful at it. I just can't do it. I cannot do it. My mind races like a crazy person. I can't do it. So, in lieu of meditation, they did say openly, you could instead write. You could instead put your thoughts to paper and write whatever is coming to you based upon a word that we will randomly give you. Well, it's not random. It's sort of random, but isn't. Every morning. And I went with the latter because I knew my meditation was hopeless. And frankly, I actually took some glee with the idea of being given a single word and being given 30 minutes maybe to apply a cohesive thought about how that relates to me in my life, my goals in my life, and take those thoughts and, as I said, apply them from pen to paper in a timed environment, no less. So I actually enjoyed it, needless to say. I geeked out, as you might want to put it, and enjoyed musing over these topics and the challenge of composing something in such a tight time restriction. So, that being said, and for the fact and the virtue that I got a lot of value out of these writings and these thoughts, and they actually reflect with me to this day in my survival, what I'm going to do is, on these lull of weeks, is share some of these writings that I did from prison, so to speak. I know it was just rehab, but I call it prison. My God, I was strip searched when I went in. It was like a prison environment throughout the whole thing. You had no contact with the outside world. All I could do was read and write. My ex would send me books over Amazon, and that's all I'd ask for, my one call home per week, I think, was send more books. And then I would read the books, and then I would write stuff. So, there's value in some of these texts, I think. Some of you listeners might think these are bunk and they're useless and can switch it off. I don't care. But at the very least, I think they're worth sharing. So without further ado, I'm going to touch on some of these writings and muses. And don't fret, they won't be too long, because after all, I was under a time limit. So, we'll begin shortly. Comrades, you and I have had a long acquaintance with sorrow. Evils, still worse, we have known. These too will end. Call back courage. Send away gloomy fear. Perhaps one day to remember, these troubles too will bring you pleasure. Virgil, the Aeneid. I'm hesitant to consider myself on any sort of quest in life, for the simple reason that I know not what I'm searching for, nor even perhaps what I desire. As I compare those values and attributes that I hold dear and systematically tally those that I have versus what I once had, one gap becomes apparent: a sense of self and purpose. At the point in life when I seem to have been at my best, I possessed both. I carefully engineered, at that point, a persona and character that I would embrace and share with the world. While I could never reduce who I was to one word or phrase, I carefully spent my days crafting and refining who I was. This sense of self was seemingly innate and was wielded as if it were a weapon to achieve some sort of higher purpose or drive. Combined, these formed my quest in life each day and further permitted me to be happy even with setback and failure. Even dire times and difficulty brought me joy as essential elements of what defined me and brought me closer to my goals in life. It was the struggle, the overcoming, which brought me happiness. As I contemplate where I go from this crossroad in life, I think I need to redefine myself and determine a higher purpose. That is, I'm not ready to close the epic, which is my life. I need to continue. I need a new quest. And that's what I wrote with respect to quest. So I can reflect immediately upon what I wrote those years ago when I was in jail. And yeah, I'm going to keep calling rehab jail because that's how it acted. So if people don't like it, deal with it. Anyway, as I reflect upon what I wrote, I think it's true. I do think that the nature of overcoming hardship gave me a lot of joy and sense of self in my life. And I don't think that's mistaken. Simply because I battled so much with my health as a kid. And throughout my career, honestly, it was truly amazing to overcome those kinds of setbacks and achieve something useful for my employer. It really did give me a sense of self and accomplishment. And I did gain a lot of joy from that. I'll never forget at one time I was sitting in my office and we had an attorney from another office. It was a very large global company, so we had offices all over the world. So we had an attorney from another office flying out to visit, and I talked to him all the time on the phone. And at the time, it was just on the heels of me being away for a week because of some heart issues. So apparently, this attorney found out why I was away, which is no big deal. We talked so much, we were like buddies. And what I'll never forget is he walked into my office to finally say hi to me face to face. And there was no pictures of each other. This is going back, before workplaces had stupid photos of their employees plastered on everything and Outlook and all that. We didn't have photos up. So this is going back some years. So he took one look at me and he goes, "Wow, you are not what I was expecting. I was expecting some old guy." because they said you had heart issues. So I was expecting some 65-year-old dude sitting here. And I laughed at that because I was like, yeah. I'm working in an area where that's the expected age, and I guess, and I'm actually 25. Yeah, go for me. But I also have heart issues. Yay, go for me. But anyway, so I forgot my point on that. Anyway, so yeah, I did enjoy overcoming things in my workplace, for sure, as I reflect on that. And in terms of finding a new quest, so help me God, wow. That is something that I would have to ponder separately. I don't think I've answered what that would be. I don't think I've answered what that would be, considering the decline in health and the problems I'm facing. I think whatever I defined then, by now, is long since defunct. Anyway, so not knowing then, I guess, doesn't matter. I mean, well, maybe it does, and I just don't know. I don't know. But either way, I certainly don't have that still, a sense of what I'm doing. And a solid sense of overcoming. When you're in hospice and every day, it's almost more bad news. Status quo or worse every day. Status quo or worse is what you're dealt with. It's hard to find the overcoming in that. And just reflecting on that single 3-minute excerpt tells me that I have still not defined a way to overcome things and derive happiness from them. And that's unfortunate. It's not something for me to think about. So this is live. I didn't plan to ponder this, by the way. This is live pondering. Wow, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that. I don't know what my new quest would be. Anyway, be that as it may, I'll try to read one other excerpt. And We'll see how that goes. So, more coming up. So, moving onward, another word they gave on another day was safe. And in my response to this, I did not actually provide a quote. Just as a heads up, I merely started writing from the heart, so to speak, from my own mind, as opposed to providing um, a reflective quote at the beginning. Unfamiliar as I am with any sort of consistent feeling of safety, I struggle to articulate my thoughts relative to the word safe or safety. Indeed, my life has been bereft of such safety even from my earliest days. Considering that I'm living with multiple terminal diseases, I've always been all too aware of my own mortality and the inevitable demise that awaits me. David Hume's philosophy stating that I once did not exist, and so too will I return to this state without any consequence to my short life, offers some solace, but certainly does not bring out any sense of safety. The world is not a safe place after all. But this is why safety is such a rare commodity, and why it is all the more precious. I'm uncertain how one can develop their own sense of safety, except to find those few grounding moments where one can reflect, be present in the moment, and appreciate the small sense of security of one's own unmolested mind. Independent and free thought is the personal realm in which all humans can exercise their existence with little or no interference. Even at times when the surrounding environment is chaos or uncertainty reigns, at least the mind can freely and safely assert itself to all those who will listen, including one's own self. In essence, this is at least one safe place where any one of us can go to retire. So, with that portion of the journal read, I think coming away from it, it's absolutely all correct and nothing has changed. Just kidding. I think it's probably 95 actually percent right still, for at least with me. From my point of view, there is one, I don't know what to call it, one thought that I glossed over as I read that I feel should probably be more prominent. And it's when I reflect upon the idea of living in the moment and having a sense of the moment and the safety, no matter how small or how short in time that may be, of that brief moment, being in the moment where things are okay. I think that's more important to me now than then for obvious reasons. Keep in mind what I'm reading is several years old. This is stuff that, it's ancient history almost in my life period. So things have certainly changed since then. And I think that is the most prominent difference now, is that I would say living in the moment, being able to occasionally live in a moment and seek out and find those small moments where you're safe and where you're comfortable and where things are okay. For that, it could be a few seconds, for just a moment. Could be 10 minutes, I don't know. Could be a year, if you're lucky. Whatever it is, time where you feel safe and thankful. And I had actually a moment just like that last night. I was lying in bed watching a movie on the laptop, and I had my dog lying next to me under the covers, upside down, laying on his back, with his feet sticking straight up, being super adorable. Yeah, my laptop playing. It was a good movie, so I was enjoying it. And an iced tea on the side, and nothing to do but sit there and watch the movie and cuddle up with my dog. And I did look at it and I thought, wow, this is a perfect little moment. This moment is awesome. And I was right. It was. It was an awesome moment. And I lucked out. I got probably a full length of a movie out of it. It wasn't just a short flash of time. I got an hour and a half at least. So I was pretty lucky. And I think it's those moments when you can only really feel safe. At least in my case, I can't feel safe with my destruction all around me, except in those moments where I forget about it and it's just me, the movie, the laptop, and the puppy, and the beverage. And that's it. That's my world. And I think all of us have little areas like that we turn to. And I think they're a good thing. I don't think it's escapism. I think it's good to find a place that allows you to withdraw and just be away. Just retire from real life for a little bit. Now, if you do this every 10 minutes, it might be a problem. Your life might be kind of crappy. If you do this all the time, I think there's a psychosis. But I think if you do it occasionally, I think it's fine. And so I would only add that to that particular excerpt from that particular reading on safety. So, with those two readings, I think I will bring this podcast to a close for this week. But I really want to, of course, thank you, dear listeners, for chiming in and listening to my incessant babbling. But let me know what you think in terms of, is this something you want to hear more of, or this was so awful you threw up in your mouth after you ate your children? I really would like to know. I've got 2 whole folders filled with my writings from jail, and I can pick it apart and share it on those off weeks when it's just the status quo. That is, everything still is just lousy. And nothing terrible has happened this week. And so we can maybe share bits and pieces on those weeks. I don't know. Just a thought. Please let me know. I care about your feedback. You can leave me a voice message, I think, on Anchor. Alternatively, you can get in touch with me directly if you know me personally. And I'll try to turn on community comments for this podcast on Anchor. I'm not sure how it works, but I'll try to turn them on. But if you're on Anchor anyway and that's not working, you can leave me a voice message on Anchor. You can just leave a stream of profanities if you want, calling me all sorts of names, which I hope at least one of you do. Otherwise, I will have failed in my life. So please tell me what you think of the format that was shared today. And thank you again for listening. Do click follow the podcast. Do click notify so you're notified of future podcasts. And if you really want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/I almost got it wrong. Patreon.com/mydogwilleatmyface. I almost got my Patreon link wrong. That'd be bad. Give you someone else's Patreon. They'd probably thank me. But the correct link is patreon.com/ the channel name, which is My Dog Will Eat My Face. I'll put a link in the description. But above all, thank you so much for listening. That means more to me than anything. And with that, I will talk to you next week. And for now, auf Wiedersehen.